How's the dinner? Okay, I'm Judy. I'm a UCSC student here. I'm also part of the Real Food Challenge campaign, which we'll be explaining to you what it is in a bit. And under that, I'm part of the Real Food Calculator team, which assesses dining purchases to determine if it's like considered real or not real under certain standards. And I just want to thank you all for being here, and I hope you guys aren't too tired to listen to what we have to say. Yeah? Okay. Woo! Thanks. Yeah. So Stephanie will talk now.
So Judy mentioned real food, and oh yeah, sorry. My name is Stephanie. I am a student at CSU Monterey Bay, and I'm part of the National Steering Committee for Real Food Challenge. Super awesome. I love it. And I guess to kind of like ground us all so that we all have like the same definition for Real Food Challenge, real food is defined as food that truly nourishes producers, consumers, communities, and the earth, so to have a holistic perspective. And what Real Food Challenge is, it's a national campaign and a network of students. So uniting students and creating the leverage between students and university to not only change the food that's served on campuses, but to also spread this change to the broader communities surrounding it. And pass it to Tim, so he can tell us a little bit about Santa Cruz specifically.
Is this one live too? Thank you, Juan. All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm grateful to see people nourished. We're going to talk to you before giving you food, but we thought that was going to be a bad idea. So we thought once you have some food in your belly and the sun's down a little bit and we're not blinded, we can engage and see your eyes. So here we are. So our flow is, it is great to hear Judy and Stephanie that are kind of pillars of a movement of why we're here with SAEA, empowering our students and giving them the tools to make the changes in our systems that we feel are the most valuable to embody a vision of a just and sustainable food system. And so there's many stories to how those interweavings begin, and there's decades of stories to sit it out here, a rich tapestry. I'm going to add one little thread to the weaving of how we began our work in the last 14 years at UC Santa Cruz when I was an undergraduate here. And we had a contracted food service provider, and our students wanted to ask about how do we source organic food from our local farmers? How do we connect with fair trade tea providers that just came over and did a workshop in a class, and we have no idea about contracts and vendors and all these dimensions of things that students don't really know about. So we had to ask questions. And what made the difference is that there were staff and faculty that gave us the support to ask those questions. And not only ask questions, but to ask, how do we change things? And they could lay that out, because there's no better body, stakeholder on a campus to change something than a student who can challenge a president, a chancellor, a governing board across an entire system, a set of trustees that fund the institution. You can't do that as much now that I wear a staff hat with CASPAS. So fortunately, I have the most amazing leaders that can go forward, and I can just share the knowledge and be an institutional body of knowledge to pass on. So what we did really quickly in a snapshot, we kicked out a 32-year contract with a food service provider that wouldn't work with us as students. And they just didn't know that the vice chancellor at the time had marched in the Delano boycotts for Cesar Chavez. I was concerned about the poor labor conditions because contracted workers earn $2 to $3 less an hour than our service workers on campus. And they wouldn't work with the barriers to work with small organic growers. The insurance liabilities and their commitment to a preferred vendor list as a large contractor limited the partnerships. We didn't believe that was part of our mission at Santa Cruz. So we changed that, and within a year and a half, we launched a multi-stakeholder working group called a Food Systems Working Group. All the stories of that are these beautiful food guides you can grab inside when you're not boogie-woogieing to Blazine in the hay barn. And check when he's out, grab it for later. It tells the whole story. But what we learned is staff, faculty have the key role, empower, give the tools, that our partners in the community know what can be done, they can connect us with the right people, and we can taste and learn and work with our dining folks to think about the types of products we want to feature for our peers. And we also, some of our campuses are fortunate enough to have farms that were heretofore not fully growing in the dining halls, but suddenly here at CASAS we have undergraduate students doing production planning, growing, and distributing to feed their peers. And a full farm-to-table vision happening with some of the product tonight. And at the end of our presentation, we'll hear from our executive chef of the intentional elements of the food you ate. So just as a closing note, we couldn't stop in Santa Cruz. We organized the entire UC system. We brought 10,000 postcards to the UC Regents as undergraduates and said, we want a sustainable food policy for the University of California. And they said, oh, that's not possible. Auxiliary services and dining, they don't work on governmental policy across the system. And we said, wait, you said no as students? You said no to students? Oh, that's the energy we need to do it. And so sure enough, they thought I would graduate and move on. I took a job with CASFIS. Lo and behold, boom, I was still here. And so that we could see President Udoff, our former president, sign the first public university higher education policy for sustainable food procurement in the country. But we couldn't stop there. So we're going to hear even the deeper stories of how the Real Food Challenge elevated and created a network to build the support of our students and our young visionaries. So I'm going to pass it on. But thank you for creating a space for that.
Thank you, Tim, for that powerful creative history. I'm Ellen. I'm gonna fix this mic. I'm a UCSC student, and I've been working on the calculator for about a year now. So just to bring you up to the present, what we're doing now, we just finished our assessment for the fiscal year. So that includes the research that we've done on products for in the dining halls. And we've really made some improvements this year by dialing in our process, our coding process, our researching process. And we've continued to build relationships with companies that we feel embody sustainable and ethical practices. And we've had a lot of victories this year that have really upped our percentage. We have Mary's Chicken, which you're all enjoying right now. That's a free-range organic item that Josh will speak a little bit more on later. And we've also worked with Pacific Cookie Company, as some of you may know, downtown. It's a local cookie company. They've worked to shift their sourcing for their flour to a local flour mill. Wow. Yeah, so those are some pretty powerful victories that we've had. And we just want to give a shout out and say that we're really, really grateful to staff and faculty for supporting us along the way through our whole process. So thank you.
Although we've had some great victories and changes throughout this year, we've also faced some challenges. One of them being the biggest issue is transparency within within the food system in general. And in order to overcome that, we've had me and Ellen and another student worker that was unable to be here. We've directly contacted vendors to get information about where they source their food from, or what is in their food, ingredients, and are they paying their workers fair wages and all that stuff, because those are all important aspects of real food. However, when we contacted these people, we've also we faced another challenge, which is sales reps from these big corporate companies do not want to talk to students. Yeah. It was really hard and sometimes a little disheartening, but we're screw that, we're not gonna let you guys discourage us. And we proved, and we proved to them that our efforts of trying to change the food system for the better of our students and even the community, the local community and everything, that the university values what we're doing. And so with the help of faculty and staff, we were able to get the information we needed to determine if their products and stuff were real or not.
So our goal is not to push away vendors that we feel don't meet our standards. It's to help them rise up to our standards. And we really hope to continue to highlight these vendors and push for change in order to meet our goal of 40% real food by 2020.
So that's at $9.5 million of buying here at UCSC, with over 25,000 or 27,000 meals served a day. Over a $30 million unit, to put that in perspective. So when they're looking through vendors, they're looking through $9.5 million of buying of products as students, doing that level of supply chain analysis as undergraduates. Put that in perspective. That's huge. So great job.
So I meant to do this earlier when I was introing RFC in general, but I want to do a big shout out for anyone who has worked with Real Food Challenge. If you want to stand, and then we can give you some love and appreciation for a little bit. Thank you. now would not be possible if we all were not here. So kind of to provide a little bit of a regional perspective, as I said, I'm from CSU Monterey Bay, and I got involved with the Real Food Challenge when there was inklings of the sustainability policy being adopted, being updated. And we heard through the grapevine that food wasn't included in the policy whatsoever. There was no language around food. And to me, I was like, outraged. I'm like, food is connected to so many different parts of this, yet it's not being recognized. And through connecting with other students, I realized I wasn't the only student. Like, this was not just a me thing. So we spent over a year through what started as calling each other and doing Google Hangouts to figuring out who was our decision maker and sending letters, handwritten letters to the Board of Trustees, collecting over like 3,000 online petitions from our own classmates to our family members to people in our surrounding community, to actually even making road trips down to Long Beach to talk in person and say how food impacts us as students. And through that year, we were not only able to get food onto the table and onto the agenda, we were able to influence how the language was written, with it being sustainable food with a definition as defined by Real Food Challenge or equivalent. And that was something that definitely would not have been possible without the UC system helping to pave the way, with helping to help us think about how to do things as a system. And I want to say I'm really proud of this because the CSU system is not just 10 schools, it's a system of 23 different campuses all across the nation, committing to 20% real food by the year 2020. And to put that into perspective, that's about $25 million from campuses that commute and that are not always the ones that do research. So can we give a big round of applause for all of us?
Cool. Hi, everyone. Hi. My name is Hannah. I am a recent proud graduate of the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and now work with the Real Food Challenge. And to zoom us out a little bit, so we heard about what's happening here at UC Santa Cruz. We got to hear about what's happening across the state of California with the UC policy and the CSU policy. And Real Food Challenge, though, is, as Steph mentioned, is a national campaign and a national network of students. And so what's happening here in California is also happening across the country. There are currently 41 additional universities who have signed on to a commitment to source 20% real food by the year 2020, to audit their purchases, to establish these food systems working groups on campus to bring stakeholders together to talk about the changes that need to happen on our campuses and in our food systems and in our communities. That's altogether more than 74 universities and more than $75 million that has been committed to investing in food that's local, food that's fair, food that's humane, and food that's ecologically sound, and supporting the kind of food system that we need so desperately right now. And this is happening because of students. Every year there are thousands of students across the country who are involved in organizing on their campuses, in bringing other students together, connecting with faculty, connecting with staff, connecting with community members, and making real change. And so we're starting to see this happen in new places. I want to celebrate this.
There's a little future student organizer here.
I want to celebrate and highlight that we've started to win big campaigns at major land-grant universities and other places in the country. Specifically, let's say this spring, UNC, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, signed on to the Real Food Campus commitment. Schools in Washington, schools in the Midwest, schools out in the Northeast. And as we are continuing to grow, we're also continuing to run into barriers. A lot of the barriers to a just and sustainable food system that we've talked about this weekend. And so the greater the barriers are on these campuses, the harder students will fight and will push to see the kinds of change they want to see. We had an incredible coalition of students at Ohio State University this year who occupied their president's office, calling for real food. And these are people, these are students who know that our universities have a responsibility to our communities, and that we are the ones who need to make sure that that happens. And so I'm really excited to be here today and to see so many people who are so deeply invested in changing the food system and in education and students taking the lead. Yeah, all right. So Ruben's going to take us away. Yeah.
Well, I'll just make one note. So we're here looking at sustainable food and agriculture, and you've heard a lot about how students have re-envisioned their role as change makers in their institutional systems, but also bridgers to the type of food and agriculture programs we're graduating students into building. Very critical work. Amidst all of that, and in parallel, but not as fully connected yet, but I think there's a future with this, we've brought another stakeholder into this wild mess of change, Ruben Canedo from UC Berkeley. He's worked with me on food security work, and being involved from the Real Food Challenge from the get-go and as a student organizer, I didn't initially think about the students that didn't have the financial aid to have a meal plan or to have a package where they could live on campus and to have the college experience. And so I think we're here to talk about justice and equity. And so we can't ignore those pieces. So I'm going to pass it over to Ruben to kind of ground that element. And then, like Open Space yesterday, we're going to challenge you to have a quick pair share. Talk to your neighbor about a little something too. So it's not just going to be us talking to you, and shortly after the music will begin, but we're going to get real here. So Ruben, get it real.
Okay, hello everyone, my name is Ruben. How y'all doing today? Yeah. Good? Okay. So as Brother Tim said, we've had the great pleasure of serving as co-chairs of the UC System-wide Food Access and Security Committee. So by show of hands, how many of y'all know the level of food insecurity in the United States in terms of U.S. households? How many of y'all? I'm just curious, okay? So, can somebody shout it out? What is it? One in what? What in how many homes? You said what?
42 million, right?
42 million, 44 million. So it's 1 in 7 households in the United States are currently identified as food insecure. So in the context of college students, which is something that's fairly newer, prior to this past year, we knew that some college studies were coming across that 1 in every 4, 1 in every 3 college students across the country were self-identifying as being food insecure. For the first time, the UC system conducted what's called the Nutrition Policy Institute Food Access and Security Study, where we found out that 42% of the 8,900 respondents were food insecure. 19% are considered very low food insecure, which means that they have low resources and are having to consume low quality foods and skipping meals. And then 23% of those are consuming low quality foods without skipping meals. So it's a 42% that we're going to be working off of in the UC system. So that gives you a little bit of a context of what's going on in those different populations. For many folks, it's not too surprising, given that we know that there is a huge amount of students that depend on the free and reduced lunch program. How many of you are familiar with the free and reduced lunch program that we have in our K-12 system? Right. So that gets cut off and it doesn't continue on to public higher education. The assumption is that college students should have enough in their financial aid packages to support themselves, right? As hopefully some of you are following. But the challenge is that housing continues to skyrocket in costs, specific in the state of California. Anybody surprised by that? Okay, cool. I know this is a national audience too, so I want to be mindful of those spaces. So for the last 2.5 years now, we've conducted conversations across the UC. Every single UC campus now has a food access and security working group of student leaders, graduate student leaders, staff, faculty, and administrators that are coming together and saying, what have we been doing already? How do we start building relationships across? Well, we found out there's a lot of great ad hoc efforts or individual efforts that have been working in silos in our colleges and universities, but not so much coming together, right? We had black students for farming, and then we had Latino students for farming, and then we had white progressives for farming, and we had all these kinds of different folks doing all this kind of awesome stuff, but folks weren't coming to the same table and saying, let's do this together. Let's figure out how do we coexist in this movement. So a lot of that conversation has happened. Thankfully, in the past year, President Napolitano signed up to do this work alongside our leadership. Every single campus received $75,000. In the past year, we provided over 52,000 service contacts, as well as established emergency relief on every single campus. This past year, we submitted a proposal, and we're very blessed, we're very fortunate that President Napolitano is funding now $3.3 million. So that's gonna be doubling the campus funding. The invitation is to say, what is the campus role? What is the campus going to show up with? Students are showing up, students are passing student fee referendums, but it cannot just be the president funding it and the students funding it and the campuses aren't coming into this conversation. So this is what we're excited to build out. We're also excited to move in the direction of being proactive and preventative. Food pantries shouldn't exist on our campuses to begin with, right? Emergency should not be needed on our campuses to begin with. So we're making that switch to go in that proactive preventative model of how do we start having conversations with middle school students, with high school students, with community college students, and talking to them about the impact that nutrition has on their lives, about financial wellness skills and strategies. The first time that you see a financial aid package should not be when you're going to college. You should already know how to read that before you even get there. And for our middle income families and our wealthier families that are having to budget for the first time, a college student and all of their responsibilities, the same thing, right? Something that we learned from the study was that it wasn't just the lowest income students that were struggling with their basic needs. It was also middle income students. It was also students coming from different backgrounds. And to our surprise, a lot of our wealthy students that are coming from challenged households where they chose to share their gender identity to their family and they got disenfranchised from that family. Students that chose a romantic partner that the family didn't approve of, or a student that broke legacy from a family going traditionally to a university and they chose to go public, or they chose to go private, or whatever, fill in the gap. And the family decided to cut them off and ask them to figure it out by themselves. So it's not an easy answer to this conversation. The assumption is that hunger has a class, a socioeconomic class, that hunger has a degree, and that's simply not the case. So we're really excited to do so, and we're not the only ones. The CSU is having these conversations, the community college system is having these conversations, and colleges and universities across the country are having this conversation. And lately, we found out that there are conversations happening in Washington, D.C. about what would it look like to expand our free and reduced lunch program to public higher education. So that's underway. How many of you have heard of the free college movement that's going on? Right, there's also the free tuition movement, and there's also the debt-free movement. All three of those things are different. And if there's something that I want you to walk away with is this. One of the biggest misconceptions is that college tuition and fees is the reason why students are struggling with their basic needs. And that's not the case. The cheapest aspect of our public education in the United States is tuition and fees. So the fact that we keep talking about affordability in terms of tuition and fees invisibilizes the fact that our students are having to take out loans to feed themselves, are having to take out loans to pay rent. So by the time that I finished paying off my college loans, what was the per meal cost and what was the per month rent that I actually ended up paying with the interest rate of my loans? Does that make sense to everybody? Are y'all flowing? Are you feeling? I know it's hella cold out here, but I know that you're with me. So if y'all want to be part of more conversations with it, please come up to us afterwards. We love building community. This work is about calling people in, not calling people out. There needs to be intentional village building with one another across identities, across sectors, and across states. Very blessed to be here with y'all. Thank y'all so much for your attention.
Thank you, Logan. So we want all students to have a real food and basic needs secure future. And so there's incredible work for all of us. And kind of transitioning from a lot of the food for thought we've given you, we want to look west where it's warm and tropical to our partners from Mao and our island partners. We can learn from how they organize online and offline to create a sustainable and just island system. There's a concept I learned from a few visits over there working on a Kellogg Foundation project. Kanu, Hawaii had built a user platform for islanders to commit to share their kuleana, which doesn't have a direct translation, but approximately rights, responsibilities, how you own your privilege, your place in the world, and what you want to contribute to make a just and sustainable future part of that vision, what you're going to live, your legacy. And so we all have kuleana. We all are called in different ways, given wherever we are. And so I wanted to pass it on. I think our students, oh, you want me to just go for it? Okay, so we want you guys just to think about what your kuleana is in this moment. How are you showing up here? Where are you going with your vision to contribute to a just and sustainable food system? As an educator, as a practitioner, as a curriculum designer, as a funder, as a legislator, as an administrator, what is your kuleana? And we'd like you to just to turn to a neighbor, introduce yourself if you don't know them, and to take a minute for each of you to share where you're called in this work. You've heard about supply chain change, you've taken tours on farms, you've seen from the seed to the plate, and you've heard about those that don't have the same access to that plate. So where are you called? We want to give you a moment to reflect on that.